Welcome to episode 211 of the GTO on 5G. It's the latest inside scoop on everything 5G. We cover 6 topics in about 20 minutes, and it's brought to you by More Insights and Strategy. I'm Will Townsend, and joining me again this week is fellow analyst Anshul Sag. Let's get started with the podcast. And my first topic this week is to talk about the mobile network operator response to the Southern California wildfires. I mean, this is tragic. There are estimates that the damage could go well over $120 billion. I have family, I have friends that live in Southern California. I'm sure you do. You're in San Diego, Anshul, right?
Yep.
It's just super tragic what's going on in LA. But what we're going to talk about are what the MNOs are doing to address connectivity issues. So let's start with Verizon. They're waiving domestic call text data usage from January 9th to the 18th, which happens to be my birthday, for customers that are in LA, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, San Diego, your hometown, and Ventura counties. They're also deploying a ton of assets, over 550 mobile assets, 300 satellite-based assets as well. They're offering residents free charging and Wi-Fi at Verizon stores. And they've also donated to the American Red Cross. Not to be undone, AT&T, obviously, they operate FirstNet. They are also waiving similar charges for customers through February 15th, also providing Wi-Fi and charging stations throughout LA and Pasadena. They're also deploying generators to support power to AT&T cell sites. AT&T has donated over $100,000 to the Red Cross as well. They're also making contributions to the LA Fire Department Foundation, the California Community Foundation, and as I mentioned, the Red Cross. And then T-Mobile, they're doing the same, providing unlimited talk, text, and data to prepaid and postpaid customers, deploying SatColts, SatCals, very small aperture terminals, and they've also engaged the Starlink service as well. And I know that's something that you probably want to talk about.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like a twofold thing. One, they were supposed to have started their beta. I actually got an email or text message from T-Mobile right as the fires were starting that, that the beta is coming soon and blah, blah, blah. And then they lit it up in Southern California. I haven't had a chance to use it, nor have I needed to.
Yeah.
But it seems like that's now lit up. And as a result of that, I think Starlink is also engaging with services and support. I saw this on Twitter yesterday. They drove out a bunch of Cybertrucks equipped with Starlink on them, and are using them as Wi-Fi hotspots for people who need connectivity. So the big 3 carriers are doing a lot, but also SpaceX as, the tier 1 supplier, or what tier 1 ISP is also offering some assistance to people in the affected areas. And yeah, as you know, when fires happen, they generally burn down a lot of infrastructure, and it will probably take a very long time to get this stuff back up and running.
Yeah, it will. And it just, unfortunately, it just seems like it's disaster after disaster. Last year, it was the hurricane recovery efforts, and now it's the wildfire recovery efforts. And again, just our thoughts and prayers go out to all those that are affected. And we encourage our viewers and listeners, if you are affected by all of this, go hit these carrier websites, because they're providing more information almost on a daily basis. But with that, let's shift to your first topic. You had the joy of spending a week in Las Vegas at CES, and you want to cover some highlights.
Yeah, so I spent pretty much all of last week at CES, and a lot of it was very PC-centric. So we got some updates on, the newest processors from AMD, Intel, Qualcomm, NVIDIA. What was interesting was NVIDIA kicked off the week, and most of what they were talking about was very much graphics related. So they announced the graphics cards. Mm-hmm. They also talked about robotics and physical AI. There wasn't much talk about 5G or connectivity. However, there was a very common thread throughout the week that AI is likely to be one, a driver of 5G, but also to drive 5G adoption, because so many of these new devices that are going to be AI capable will ultimately need an internet connection to run AI, even if it's locally, because these models can only be so big to run locally. And
Yeah.
then you'll eventually get a model too big for the local device and you have to go to the cloud. So hybrid AI is going to be a big driver, I believe, of 5G in the future. And that 5G will enable a lot of interesting, unique AI capabilities that either exist on device or in the cloud. And being able to transfer between the two seamlessly will be really important. And you'll need a low latency, high throughput connection for that. And I just think that when you look at what's going on with the AI realm today, we're just seeing that there's more opportunity for 5G and AI together, kind of like with AI and XR.
Hmm.
That's for another topic. But AI is working as an accelerant, but also as a way to accelerate. And it's just really interesting because I think when you really conceptualize what's going on in the 5G space, we're talking about AI constantly running the network, but also like needing AI is going to be a big factor, I think, this year.
I agree. And just for our viewers and listeners, you mentioned the term hybrid AI, and so that's the whole idea of running large language models and the connectivity to the cloud, as well as doing local or sort of edge communications, right? With smaller language models and
Yeah.
sort of the rise of the AI PC, which is an area that you've covered very exhaustively, via Forbes and More Insights and Strategy. I believe is going to factor heavily in the future. And to your point, we've been talking about 5G for 5-6 years now. We're on episode 211 after all. And in the improvements that 5G delivers from a throughput and a latency perspective and device support perspective over LTE is pretty phenomenal. So, for those of us that were waiting for the killer app, you and I have talked about fixed wireless access as emerging as that killer 5G use case. This
It
whole
might
notion,
be AI.
yeah, it might be hybrid AI, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, hey, let's go to my second topic, and this is news that broke last week. So, AT&T announced something that they're calling Guarantee, and it aims to elevate the subscriber experience. And when I was pre-briefed on this, and then I had an opportunity to speak with Jen Robertson that runs mass markets. That's a huge part of AT&T's business. That's the consumer wireline and mobility part of AT&T, over 90 billion in revenue. She and I talked about this a little bit more. I will be publishing a Forbes article with my interview with Jen and go into a little more detail. But the way to think about this is it's almost like a service level agreement for consumers and small businesses. So, they're doing a couple of things with this. Number one, they're basically putting their money where their mouth is. And if you experience, I believe it's a fiber outage for 20 or more minutes, or a mobility outage for 60 or more minutes, and it has to meet some criteria, a subscriber receives a credit in the form of a credit to their bill. And also to elevate the call center experience, the company is guaranteeing that when you call a call center, if you have an issue, that within 5 minutes, the phone will be picked up, or you have the option to schedule a return call at your choosing. And then there's also a guarantee around if that issue cannot be resolved, through a call center professional, there's some guarantees with respect to how quickly they dispatch a field service technician the following day. And so this is the first of its kind. There are no other connectivity providers, whether it's fiber or mobility, that are providing guarantees. And I think it's something that the competition is going to pay close attention to. And we may see companies like T-Mobile, Verizon, and others stepping up and doing the same. So I don't know if you caught the news. I know you were busy at CES, but what do you think about all this?
I did catch the news.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I'm an AT&T fiber customer.
There you go.
I did see the guarantee part. I did see that outage credit component of it. I
Yeah.
did not know about the customer service component, which I
Hmm.
think is really interesting, as well as the service guarantee. So I do think that's really interesting. N- It feels very pro-consumer, to be honest with you.
Sure.
So I have a hard time seeing anything being bad about this. Um, I think this might be a way for the AT&T to try and get back some customers they might have lost in the past,
Hmm.
um, by creating these kind of service level agreements, because that's kind of how I see these.
Yeah.
These are like consumer SLAs. Um, and I think that this is a good thing because I think it will drive other carriers to do the same thing. I think this will help them gain customers and retain customers. I think it'll help with churn. I
Yeah.
think it'll help with net ads. Um, I don't see this being bad. I will say for AT&T Fiber, that stuff's been rock solid for me for
Yeah.
years. So for them, like, it's a rock solid product. They don't really have to do much there. They might have some more work on their other products, but I also think it's exciting because, for some customers, they're offering that like 5G cellular backend backup in addition
Yep.
to fiber. We've talked
Right.
about that in previous episodes, but I just think I think that's a good way for them to enable guaranteed service when there's like a little blip. Gives them that ability to offer 5 nines reliability. And yeah, I just think it's great. I hope consumers become aware of it. I hope they market it, because it's a differentiator. And I feel like, carriers have not been great at customer service in the
Yeah.
past. And, once we've reached a certain point of customer service, I felt like everybody was like, yeah, this is low enough. So
Right.
I think it's good to raise that bar a little bit and improve the user experience, at no added cost.
No added cost. And, in speaking with Jen Robertson, she views this as an opportunity to not only minimize churn, but actually, to your point, I think you made this point. It's not only retention, but it's also potential a customer ad engine as well. And hey, there are carriers that give away free Netflix and
Yeah.
koozies and that sort of thing. And I'm kind of being tongue in cheek about T-Mobile, but this is demonstrable value from my perspective. To your point, it's been sort of like a best effort, and we've all sort of gotten used to like drop calls, right? And buffering when we're streaming something, and we're on our cellular plans and that sort of thing. So for me, this really indicates that AT&T is very confident about the infrastructure it's built, not only from a wireline but a mobility perspective, and obviously fiber feeds mobility for backhaul. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. Now, some subscribers may try to take advantage of this. There's always those individuals that try to take advantage of a situation. But there are some guardrails that are fenced around this. So I think it's great. I think it's a model for other carriers to follow, and it'll be interesting to see how it all comes together. AT&T is promoting the heck out of it. So
As they
unfortunately,
should.
yeah,
I'm,
unfortunately,
I'm waiting for a Super Bowl ad.
yeah, well, I saw several ads while I was watching my Longhorns struggle against the Buckeyes, unfortunately. And Tim Tebow is in one of the ads where he throws a set of keys to the valet and it hits a window or something. And so they're doing some fun stuff with guarantee here. But again, I think it's very, very valuable, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of AT&T's competitors follow suit. But with that, let's move to your second topic. You want to talk about T-Mobile and an acquisition that they made, and this is all focused on pumping up its ad business.
Yeah, so I will be honest with you. I do not know how to pronounce this company's name.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's Vystar or Vstar.
Vystar.
But basically, T-Mobile acquired them for $600 million.
Wow,
They
that's a
are,
lot of that's a lot of money, man.
yeah, 600 million bones. Vystar Media is a leading provider of technology solutions for digital out-of-home advertisements. So basically, it's digital ads, everywhere that's not, in front of your TV.
Yeah.
And basically, this is going to bolster what T-Mobile's already doing in its ad business. They're doing a lot of data collection and advertising to their customers with stuff like T-Mobile Tuesdays. And I think this is just a way for them to increase the potential of that business, grow their overall ad business, and find ways to generate more revenue outside of just regular subscribers. It's a constantly growing business. We see companies like Amazon and Apple growing their advertising businesses as well, even though
PayPal is focused on the same as well.
Oh yeah, especially with their acquisition of Honey, which is a different hole to go down, a rabbit hole to go down with the recent stuff. But generally, they seem this is a way to personalize and create more relevant ads for their customers and for companies to reach their customers, because they are now a gigantic carrier. So I think this is a good addition for them. And I think they will be able to generate pretty good revenue and profit off this.
Hey, you look at companies like Facebook that generate billions upon billions of dollars in ad revenue, right? There's something to it. Google as well. So
those two would not survive without ads.
No, that's what floats the boat for those two, for sure.
Yes.
So. Well, hey, let's go to my third and final topic. And this is something that broke a little over a week ago, may have been a little bit longer, may have been just right before or right after the holidays. But Legato Networks and AST Space Mobile are teaming up. And I wasn't familiar with Legato Networks, but apparently they have a lot of low-band spectrum.
Yep.
And they filed for bankruptcy. I'm not sure if that's Chapter 7 or Chapter 11. If it's a reorganization or if it's a liquidity, but what they've agreed to do is to give AST Space Mobile usage rights to some of its L-band spectrum, and it's up to 40 megahertz. And this is interesting. Legato says Legato will continue operating throughout its restructuring, so it is I think that's Chapter 7, if I'm not mistaken. And continue to try to provide mobile satellite service to its existing customers. But this is interesting because it sort of begs the question: does this provide AST Space Mobile what it needs from a spectrum perspective to make its direct to cell service viable? I mean, I think there was an AT&T spokesman or spokesperson that stated like additional spectrum is always a good thing. There's no intention for AST to not continue to work with AT&T. I actually reached out to AST Space Mobile because, as our viewers and listeners know, I've spent time with the company in Midland, and I'm still trying to arrange a meeting with executives there and sort of publish my thoughts. So I don't have a lot to share there, but this is an interesting development. Sort of opportunistic for AST Space Mobile. What do you think, my friend?
I think it's weird.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
The reason why it's weird is because almost the day before this deal was struck, Legato filed for Chapter 11 again.
Did they? Okay, I didn't catch that.
Not today, like a week ago.
Okay.
So when they announced it's a partnership with AST Space Mobile, they also filed for bankruptcy, Chapter 11, for a second time.
Okay.
So they happened in concert.
Yeah.
And I believe it's because partially Legato is also suing the U.S. government for using their spectrum without their permission.
I've read about that. It's the DoD, right?
Yeah. So I think what they're doing is they're striking this deal with Space Mobile because AST Space Mobile can actually use the spectrum and they can get paid for the use of the spectrum.
Right.
And that's why I think this deal went through when it did. And yeah, they apparently have something to the tune of $8.6 billion in debt.
Yeah. It's huge.
And this would reduce it down to $1.2 billion. So there's a lot going on. I feel like this is could be a problematic thing for AST Space Mobile to engage in. Mm-hmm. Just because of the legalities around the spectrum and what's going on with the lawsuit. Yeah. But I know about Legato. I didn't realize they'd already gone on Chapter 11 for the second time. Mm-hmm. I saw January 5th and I was like, wait, that's literally around the time when this announcement happened with AST Space Mobile. So it sounds messy. But ultimately, I think AST Space Mobile needs as much spectrum as they can get their hands on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is just one of those things where the spectrum has already been vetted for satellite communications, and 45 megahertz is nothing to, balk at. So I think it'll be good for them, but hopefully they are aware of what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, but you're right. The timing was very unusual for sure.
Especially, like, it's not very often that companies file for Chapter 11 within 2 years of each other.
And then announce a deal sort of towards the tail end of the second. So
Yeah, this might even go to court.
yeah, it'll be interesting. Well, hey, let's go hit your final topic. And we've talked about Ericsson and their design on network programmability and APIs, and we've talked about the joint venture. But
Yes.
it sounds like there's a name to this, and there's a new leader.
Yes. So interestingly enough, I ran into Sean Kinney at CES during the Qualcomm cocktail hour, which
Mm-hmm.
actually turned out to be quite the shitty cocktail hour because somebody released a bunch of sewage uh, uh, at the end of the party somewhere nearby, and we all had to run out because it smelled so badly
So
of
literally,
sewage.
so literally and figuratively, it was a shitty cocktail party.
Yeah.
but
But
Sean
before,
Kinney is always fun to talk to. So he
yeah, so
makes for
before that ended,
interesting.
we started talking about this joint venture and 5G APIs with Leonard Lee as well.
Okay.
And it didn't have a name at that time yet. So
Yeah,
it does now. And the company is called Aduna,
I do.
Aduna. And the new CEO is a telecom exec with 30 years. His name's Anthony Bartolo. Do
Mhm.
you know him? Because it looks like he came from Avaya and a bunch of other companies. He was also at Tata. So this guy has lots of experience in the network business.
Yeah.
Um, and basically, this is going to be the company that helps to hopefully simplify the 5G API space and create like a unified business across all carriers. So one company, like let's say an NFL, can come to this Aduna company and work with them on a 5G API to
Yeah.
use all the 5G networks in the US simultaneously for some kind of application. So
Hmm.
hopefully this will help organize things. He will assume responsibility of the CEO of Aduna starting January 20th. So this hasn't even actually technically begun yet.
Okay.
But the 5G APIs will be based on the Kamara APIs. So
Yeah.
um, there's definitely some industry standardization here. There's a good 10 global carriers that are part of this venture. So
Hmm.
they probably represent at least half of the world's cellular users, based on what I know.
Yeah.
If you exclude China, just because they make up like half the world's cellular users. But
Yeah.
even with China, I think you're pretty close to half of the world's cellular users.
Hmm. This is interesting. So the Vonage team isn't going to drive the bus on this. So that makes sense because it's a joint venture. They're bringing lots of operators together. I've written about this on numerous occasions. In fact, if our viewers and listeners are interested, I posted an analyst insight or a research note, I forget which it was, to the More Insights and Strategy website where I talk about network programmability and I talk about both Ericsson and Nokia and how both companies are driving it. Like you said, Kamara, that's open source. GSMA has done a lot of good work with Open Gateway to really set the table to really sort of blow the doors off of this. And it's been, I think it's been a hesitant thing for a lot of MNOs, but finally with standardization, we're starting to see some momentum and some coalescing coming around, a set of standards here to really go drive this. And the opportunity is huge, especially for developers to really innovate on top of the 5G stack and take full advantage of 5G because that really hasn't happened, from my perspective. So I think it's an interesting name, Aduna. It probably comes from something, probably some, ancient Sanskrit, but I think this is good for the industry, and I think, and I do in this research note, I do sort of point to 2025 as being the year where I think we're really going to see a lot of momentum behind network APIs. So good stuff, my friend. This was our first live podcast. I was a little nervous, dusting off the cobwebs after the holidays. I hope you had a great holiday. You went straight to CES, and I'm on the road next week. So with that said, why don't you take us home?
Absolutely. We hope our viewers and listeners found this week's topics interesting. If anyone out there would like to provide insights on a specific 5G topic for a future podcast, please reach out to us on social media. Will is at Whaletown Tech, and I'm at Anshel Sag. We hope you have a great week, and please tune again next week, and don't forget to rate us and subscribe.